The clatter of cardboard scraping across concrete echoed before I saw anything. Thin winter light filtered through the garage window as I stood half crouched, balancing a busted speaker in one hand, letting it rest against my thigh. Kyle's breath fogged up the glass from the other side of the garage door, his silhouette motionless for a second, maybe realizing just how much crap he had crammed into this space. I shifted my grip on the speaker and cleared my throat. "I think this one's toast," I called out. He slid the door open with a rusty creak, then winced. "Toss it, or, I don't know, maybe the junk guys'll take it." We'd been moving since 7:15 that morning. Kyle hadn't even offered coffee. The air in his garage smelled like old dryer sheets and motor oil, with a weird undercurrent of cat pee, even though he didn't own a cat. The man had lived in this rental for 6 years, and judging by the piles of dusty boxes, he'd never truly unpacked. I placed the speaker down on a pile marked "Donate" with a Sharpie and turned back toward the shelves on the left. Steel racks sagging under paint cans, half-used cleaning supplies, and a random bag of golf clubs he swore he'd take up one day. My shoulder brushed against a string of broken Christmas lights. That's when I saw the guitar case. Black hardshell, speckled with dried paint and a busted handle. It sat wedged between a rolled-up rug and a broken-down IKEA nightstand. My breath caught a little. No way. I pushed aside the rug carefully, heart thudding with something I couldn't name yet. It was mine. Or at least it looked like mine. I dropped to one knee and tugged the case out into the light. The latch on the side still had the scratch I'd put in it during high school, when I tripped running out of Mr. Keller's music room. My initials, RS, were still barely visible on the corner, smudged under years of grime and time. I didn't say anything for a full minute. I just stared. Kyle came up beside me, sweat darkening the armpits of his old college hoodie. "Hey, careful with that. Some guy already claimed it." I looked up slowly. "What?" "The guitar. I posted it last week. Guy from Craigslist. He already Venmo'd me." I blinked. "That's mine." Kyle frowned, tilting his head. "Nah, man. I've had that thing since... shit, I don't know, forever. Found it in the basement when I moved in." "No, you didn't." I stood up, the case still in my hand. "You borrowed it from me 2 years ago. You wanted to try learning chords after that Jason Isbell concert." He rubbed the back of his neck. "I mean, maybe. But come on, Ryan. It's been 2 years. You never asked for it back." Because I forgot, I thought. Because life happened. But saying that out loud would sound pathetic. It was pathetic. "I didn't think I needed to. We're friends." Kyle shrugged and gave a weak smile. "Dude, it's just a guitar. You haven't touched it in years, right?" My jaw clenched. "Did you at least check if it was mine before you sold it? Look, I needed to get rid of stuff, all right? Movers charge by the pound. And besides, it was just collecting dust in the corner." I opened the case. Empty. A hollow space where music used to live. We didn't speak much for the next hour. The silence had weight, heavier than the couch we nearly dropped on the porch steps. He kept fiddling with his phone, checking messages, pretending to be busy while I hauled boxes labeled "books" and "bathroom probably" into his rented U-Haul. Every now and then I'd glance at the spot where the guitar had been. Like the absence of it kept shouting louder than anything else in the garage. There was something about the way Kyle brushed it off, like he hadn't just peeled a piece of my past away and handed it to some random guy online for $50. It wasn't about the money. It wasn't even about the guitar, really. It was about being erased. Backtrack. That guitar and me. I bought that guitar with my first real paycheck, 23, working as a stock boy at the downtown Trader Joe's. I skipped meals for a week to afford the extra $100 for the hardshell case. Spent nights learning basic tabs from YouTube and burning my fingers on steel strings. It wasn't a fancy model. Mid-range Yamaha, a little too heavy in the neck, but it had soul. I'd strummed it on the fire escape of my first apartment during breakups, played it at my sister's wedding, even wrote one terrible song that my high school crush said had potential. And then, 2 years ago, Kyle asked to borrow it. He'd just broken up with some yoga instructor who hated men who didn't express themselves musically. And he was in one of his creative phases. I handed it over without a second thought, because that's what friends do. I even gave him the little cloth I used to clean the strings, and then I forgot. Well, I didn't forget, but I let time pass. Assumed it was still around. I never imagined it'd be sold behind my back like it was junk at a yard sale. By noon, my hoodie was soaked, my back ached, and I still hadn't said what I wanted to. We sat on the curb, eating gas station sandwiches. Kyle scrolled through his phone. I chewed slowly, watching a leaf get stuck under the U-Haul's front tire. Finally, I asked, "Who bought it?" He looked up. "What?" "The guitar. You said some guy claimed it. Who?" Kyle shrugged. "Dunno. Username was just CraigLover88 or something. Paid fast. Said he'd pick it up Monday." My fingers curled into the sandwich wrapper. "So it's not even gone yet." He raised an eyebrow. "You seriously want it back now?" I didn't answer. Later that day, a quiet line in the sand. By the time we finished unloading at his new place, I was running on fumes. 2 flights of stairs, 3 smashed fingers, and 1 lamp that broke when Kyle dropped it. He offered beer. I declined. I stood in the doorway of his new living room, staring at the mix of mismatched furniture and open boxes, trying to figure out why I felt like I needed a shower and a stiff drink and a long, quiet scream. He tried to lighten the mood. "Come on, man. It's just stuff. You've got what? A new laptop, new phone, probably forgot that guitar even existed." "That's not the point," I said quietly. He made a face, somewhere between guilt and frustration. "Look, I'll send you the money. What did it cost? $250? I'll Venmo it tonight." I looked at him then, really looked. The guy who once helped me move in the rain, who lent me $200 after my car broke down, who crashed on my couch for 3 weeks after his job laid him off. That guy was still in there. But this version of him, this version sold a piece of me without blinking. "I don't want the money," I said. Then I left. That night, a thought that wouldn't let go. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling fan. My room was quiet, the only noise coming from the soft hum of the fridge in the next room. I should have felt relief. The move was done. I didn't owe Kyle anything, but my mind wouldn't shut up. Why hadn't I noticed the guitar was missing? Why didn't I take it back sooner? Why did he think it was okay? I turned over, pulled my phone off the nightstand, and opened Craigslist. Search. Yamaha acoustic, black case, recent listings. There it was. Great beginner guitar, recently cleaned. Case included, $60 firm. The photo showed my old guitar propped up against Kyle's stained garage wall. My initials cropped out of the corner, but I knew it. I'd know that dent in the soundboard anywhere. I stared at the listing for a long time. Then I emailed the seller under a different name. The email I sent to the Craigslist listing was simple. "Hey, I'm interested in the guitar. Still available? Can pick up Monday." I didn't sign it with my real name. I used a burner Gmail account I once made to prank sign Kyle up for a Cat Lovers of Ohio newsletter. That felt like a lifetime ago. He replied 5 hours later, "Yep, still available. Pick up Monday after 6, okay? Address, redacted K." He didn't even recognize the email, or maybe he didn't care. Monday was in 2 days. 2 days where I did exactly what I shouldn't have done. I stewed. Sunday. Memory lane has speed bumps. That Sunday, I pulled out the drawer in my old desk, the one where I kept stuff I didn't know how to throw away. crumpled pay stubs, loose keys to who knows what, a faded movie ticket from a second date that didn't turn into a third. And there, buried under an old birthday card from my sister, was the original receipt for the guitar. Yamaha FS800 Natural Finish, purchased March 9th, 2014, $279.99. Sam's Music Shack, downtown Dayton. I ran my thumb over the faded ink. Couldn't believe I'd kept it, but I did. That guitar was mine, not in theory, not in spirit. In fact, I took a photo of the receipt with my phone, then opened my messages. Me. You still giving that guy the guitar Monday? I stared at the message to Kyle for 10 minutes before deleting it. What was I trying to do? Guilt him into backing out? Lecture him into being someone he clearly wasn't anymore? No. I wanted it back. Not the money, not an apology, just the guitar. Monday, 6 p.m. on the dot. I pulled into Kyle's new complex at exactly 5:58 p.m. My palms were sweating, which felt stupid, because I wasn't doing anything wrong. Except I was, at least a little. I wasn't there to buy the guitar. I was there to take back what he gave away without asking. The front steps of his building were chipped and uneven, the kind of wear that suggested landlords who didn't live nearby. A woman smoked on the third-floor landing while her toddler banged a plastic hammer against the railing. Unit 2B, right side. I knocked. Kyle opened the door with a forced smile. "Hey, you must be Craig Lover 88? I nodded slowly. "Yeah, here to pick up the guitar." He didn't recognize me. Not right away. He turned to grab the case leaning against the wall, then froze. His head jerked back around. "Ryan?" I shrugged. Figured this was the only way to see it again. His mouth opened, but no sound came. I stepped inside before he could say no. Face to face with the truth. The guitar was in the same case. Same scratch on the latch. Same sticker residue from that Modest Mouse decal I peeled off back in 2016. He held it like it was evidence. "I can't believe you catfished me," he said. "I can't believe you sold my stuff without asking." He looked around like the walls might have a better answer. "Dude, you ghosted it. You didn't even remember it until I posted it." I stepped forward, hand out. "Doesn't change who owns it." He didn't move. I said, "You want me to bring the receipt? Because I've got it." Still nothing. Finally, he handed it over, but not before saying, "You know you could have just asked." I nodded slowly. "And you could have too." I zipped the case shut and walked out. The ride home. I didn't feel good. That was the weird part. I thought I'd feel victorious, or vindicated, or maybe just right. Instead, I felt like I'd just kicked over a sandcastle and called it justice. I put the guitar in the back seat and drove in silence. No music, no podcasts, just me and the low hum of the heater. At a red light, I looked back at the case again. And that's when the real question hit me. Why did he have it out? Why was the guitar leaning against the wall, like he'd planned to give it to someone else? Unless the missing string. Back home, I opened the case gently. It smelled like wood polish and old memories. I ran my hand along the fretboard, then plucked a string. D string. Loose, flat. I adjusted the peg and strummed again. And froze. The E string wasn't mine. The strings had been changed. Recently. Kyle didn't just have the guitar ready. He'd played it, which meant he remembered exactly where it came from and still tried to sell it. The line between friends and familiar strangers. I didn't talk to Kyle the rest of that week. He didn't reach out either. The silence was mutual. By Saturday, I caught myself scrolling old photos, group shots from bonfires, road trips, drunk birthdays. There we were, arms over each other's shoulders, grinning with crooked teeth and too much cheap beer in our systems. And yet now, it felt like a different language, like I'd forgotten how to speak Kyle. He used to come over and play Mario Kart for hours. Now I couldn't imagine inviting him inside my apartment without checking which drawer I left my wallet in. Friendship doesn't disappear all at once. It erodes, like shoreline under slow, relentless waves. One more message. That Sunday night, I finally texted him. Me. Were you really going to sell it, or were you hoping I'd see the listing? He read it immediately, then typed, paused, typed again, then nothing. No reply. Not that night. Not ever. Strumming something else. I played the guitar that night. First time in over a year. The strings were too new, too bright, but they'd settle. My fingers fumbled through old chords, muscle memory groaning to wake up. I tried that awful old song I wrote for Ashley back in college. Still bad, still mine. I didn't feel healed. I didn't feel heroic. But I felt like I had something back. Even if it was just the weight of it in my lap. What came next? 2 weeks later, a mutual friend texted, "Hey, did you and Kyle have a falling out? He said something weird about Craigslist." I didn't reply. There's no elegant way to say, "Yeah, I tricked my friend into giving back something he stole from me." So I didn't explain. Instead, I went back to the garage. My garage. I cleared a shelf, set the guitar case there like it belonged again. Because it did. Because even if people forget what they borrowed, I'll never forget what they gave away. The guitar sat in my living room for a week. I didn't touch it. Not because I didn't want to, because I didn't trust what would come out of me if I did. It was like bringing home a box of old letters from an ex, familiar, heavy with unsaid things, and somehow more haunting now that it was back in my possession. Every time I passed it, I caught a flicker of guilt or anger or just something too tangled to name. The apartment felt louder with it there, not with sound, just with memory. I left it by the bookcase and tried to go back to normal. But normal had shifted, the first gig after everything. A week later, Dan, our mutual friend, texted, "Hey man, open din stinches. Mike night this Friday. Come out, bring your strings." He always called it that. Your strings? Like they were an extra limb. I almost said no. Then I stared at the case again, sitting like a guest that had overstayed its welcome and was somehow still paying rent. Maybe it was time. Friday night, return to the scene. The bar hadn't changed. Same tacky neon signs, same half-broken jukebox, same guy with the mole on his temple who always ordered Michelob like it was a life philosophy. It was comfort food for the soul. I showed up early, guitar in hand. Dan grinned from across the bar. "Holy shit, the prodigal six-string returns." "Don't make it weird," I said, sliding onto a stool. "Too late. You brought her. It's already a night." I glanced around. No sign of Kyle. I wasn't sure if I wanted to see him or not. I tuned the guitar slowly, careful with every string. The new ones had finally settled in. They hummed under my fingers with something like recognition. Dan came over, nursing a beer. "You and Kyle good?" he asked, casual like someone lighting a short fuse. I didn't look up. "Don't know. He mentioned something about a misunderstanding. Craigslist, I think." "Is that what we're calling it now?" I plucked the low E string. Dan frowned. "He said he didn't realize it was yours. Thought you'd left it." "Did he say that before or after I emailed him, pretending to be someone else?" Dan blinked. "Wait, that was you?" I smiled, not kindly. "Guess you didn't get the whole story." He let out a breath and nodded slowly. "Okay, that's a lot." I didn't answer. Because what else was there to say? The song that came out anyway. My name was called. The mic felt colder than I remembered. The spotlight a little too white. I sat down on the stool, cleared my throat, and didn't introduce myself. I just started to play. It wasn't a song anyone knew. It wasn't even a song I remembered writing. But the chords came from somewhere deep, quiet, aching, full of what I hadn't said out loud. Each note stretched like a scar across something I hadn't fully healed. And when I was done, there was that weird moment when the last string stops vibrating and the air feels a little too raw. Then a beat later, applause. Polite. Then louder. Dan clapped the loudest. "That one's new," he said when I sat down again. "Yeah," I said. "Just came out." He took a sip of his beer and added, "Sounds like closure." I didn't reply, because it wasn't. Not yet. A familiar knock. The next evening, I was on my couch, scrolling mindlessly through takeout apps, when I heard it. 3 knocks. Familiar rhythm. Kyle. I knew before I even opened the door. He looked tired, wearing that same Ohio State hoodie, now faded at the sleeves. He didn't say anything for a second. Then, "You played last night." I leaned against the door frame. "Wasn't expecting you." He nodded. "Figured that." We stood there for a moment like two guys staring at a wreck we both helped cause. Then he said, "You were good." "Thanks." He shifted awkwardly. "Look, I didn't handle that well. The guitar, everything." "You think?" That earned a weak chuckle. "Yeah, I was kind of an ass." "Kind of." I raised an eyebrow. He shoved his hands into his pockets. "Okay, fine. A full ass." I didn't laugh, because it wasn't funny. "I played it," he said after a second, "before I posted it, just once." "Why?" "I don't know," he said. "Felt like something I needed to do." I stared at him, then asked, "Did you know it was mine?" A pause. Then, "Yeah." There it was. Not a long speech, just a single truth, finally dropped like a weight between us. The difference between saying sorry and being sorry. "I should have told you," Kyle said. "You should have asked." "I thought you wouldn't care. I figured it had been years." "Still mine. I know." I leaned on the doorframe. "What do you want, Kyle?" He looked down. "Honestly, I don't know. Maybe to say it out loud, that I screwed up." "You did." He nodded. "Badly." Another nod. I waited for more. None came. No grand apology. No dramatic gesture. No cash offer or emotional breakdown. Just him, standing there, not running. For once. The decision. "I'm not mad anymore," I said finally. He looked up, surprised. "You're not?" "No, I'm just tired." He nodded again, slower this time. "Me too." We stood in silence. Then I asked, "Want a beer?" He smiled. Yeah, I do." Back to the strings that night, Kyle sat on my balcony. I handed him the guitar. He looked at me. "Really? Play." He strummed awkwardly. Still couldn't manage a clean G chord. I chuckled. "Still terrible." "Still trying, Ben," he said. And for the first time in weeks, I believed him. Not just about the music, about everything. But not everything can be repaired. We didn't talk about what happened again. Not that night. Not in the weeks that followed. He came around less. Texts slowed. But something about that felt right. Not bitter, just honest. Like some friendships aren't meant to break or bloom, just drift. And yet one more thing. 2 months later, I got a package. No return address. Inside, a capo, a set of new strings, and a note. Figured she deserved the good stuff. K. The package sat on my kitchen table for 2 full days before I even touched the contents. The strings were high-end Diodarios, the coated kind I used to drool over in the music shop, but never bought because they felt like an indulgence. The capo was solid metal, brushed silver. Expensive. Definitely not from the discount bin. The note, though, that's what messed with me. She deserved the good stuff. There was no apology in those words, just a recognition that he'd taken something, that maybe, finally, he understood what it meant to me. That, weak, a familiar silence. I didn't text him back, not because I was angry, but because I didn't know how to say thank you without reopening everything else. Kyle and I had always had a strange kind of rhythm, months of tight bonding, then silence. Like old friends who were better at reminiscing than evolving. This was one of those silences, except now it wasn't comfortable. Now it hummed with unfinished business. March 9th. It wasn't until a week later, on March 9th, exactly 11 years to the day I'd bought the guitar, that I restrung it. I set the case on my lap, flipped the latches one by one, and inhaled that scent again. Wood, polish, time. I laid the strings out like surgical tools, dismantled the old set, cleaned the fretboard. When I clipped the ends of the last new string, I sat back and let the neck rest on my thigh. And then, without thinking, I played. A song with no words. It started as a few aimless chords, C to G to M, but then something shifted. My fingers moved on their own, finding places on the fretboard they hadn't visited in years. String bends that felt like opening an old scar and not flinching. It wasn't a song anyone knew, wasn't even a song I knew, but it was mine. I stopped recording halfway through, not because it was bad, but because it felt too personal, too raw. Some things aren't for likes. Some things are just for you. An old text. Thread reopened later that night. I scrolled back through my old texts with Kyle, not out of nostalgia, curiosity maybe. They were mostly jokes, memes, the kind of shorthand friendship made of movie quotes and bad spelling. But one stuck out, dated from 2 years earlier, around the time he borrowed the guitar. Kyle, still messing around with it. I suck, might quit. Me, it's not about being good. Just play something that means something. Kyle, what if I don't have anything that means anything? I remember reading that at the time and laughing. Thought it was typical Kyle melodrama. Now it hit different. The next invite. A few days later, Dan texted again. Open mic again this Friday. Bring your 6-string therapy. This time, I didn't hesitate. Friday night, a familiar face in the crowd. The bar was busier than usual. Something about the early spring weather brought people out. Coats unzipped, sunglasses perched on heads, hope hanging in the air like the tail end of a good chorus. I tuned up in the corner. Dan gave me a nod from behind the bar. Crowd's friendly tonight. I scanned the room. Didn't see him. Part of me was relieved. Another part wasn't. I took the mic. Wrote this a few weeks ago, I said. Never played it in public. Then I started. No lyrics. Just strings. Just the weight of everything I'd held back. Disappointment, loss, the weird way friendship can feel like a fraying rope you still try to climb. The final chord hung in the air like a held breath. Then silence. Then applause. Real. Earnest. Someone whistled. I looked up. And there he was. Far back corner by the window. Kyle. After the set. He didn't approach me immediately. He waited. Let others pass. Let me pack up. Only then, as I slid the capo into my case, did he step forward. That was yours, he said. I nodded. Sounds like you finally played it for you. I looked at him. You knew the date. He gave a sheepish smile. It popped up on my calendar. March 9th. Buy guitar. I blinked. You're kidding. Nope. I put it in there 2 years ago, after I broke a string. Told myself I'd replace it. 2 years later? He shrugged. I'm not always on time, but I show up eventually. One last conversation. We sat outside on the curb, legs stretched out toward the street. No beer, no background music. Just the hum of passing cars and the occasional gust of early spring breeze. I wasn't trying to hurt you, he said. I know. I didn't think you'd remember it. I did. He nodded slowly. I wanted to be the kind of guy who didn't need to hold on to things, but then I sold something that wasn't mine and became the guy who can't let go of guilt. He chuckled. Touché. We sat in silence again. Then he said, We good? I didn't answer right away. I looked at the guitar case between us, then at him. We're not bad. And that felt more honest than yes. The morning after I woke up the next day with sore fingers and a full heart. I made coffee, opened the window, let the cool air in, then sat down with the guitar and wrote a song called Things We Don't Return. It had no chorus, just one long verse unfolding like a conversation that never quite ends. It started raining the night before the festival. Not the gentle kind, the kind of rain that comes down like it's been holding something in for days and finally lets go all at once. Thick, loud, unforgiving. The organizers sent out a mass email. The main stage has been moved indoors to accommodate the weather. I stared at it and laughed, because of course it had, because nothing ever unfolds exactly the way you picture it when you're younger, strumming in your bedroom and imagining some faceless crowd listening, swaying, humming back your words. But then again, that wasn't why I signed up. Flashback. The sign-up. A month earlier, Dan had forwarded me the flyer. River Run Arts and Music Festival, singer-songwriter stage, local artists wanted. I almost ignored it, but the idea lingered. Not because I thought I was good enough. I still missed chords, still couldn't read sheet music properly, still hesitated. Before bridges because I never wrote them confidently. But something about the idea of playing a song, my song, from my guitar, in a room full of strangers, felt like closing a loop. I didn't tell Kyle. Not yet. Saturday morning. The rain hadn't stopped. I parked 2 blocks away because the usual lot was flooded. The case knocked against my knee as I hurried through puddles, head down, breath short. By the time I reached the community center, my jeans were soaked at the cuffs. Inside, it smelled like fresh paint and old air vents. A woman in a yellow poncho handed me a name tag. Ryan Spencer? She asked, reading from her clipboard. Yeah. You're at 2:30, third act after lunch. Cool. She smiled like I was supposed to be excited. I was mostly trying not to sweat through my shirt. The room. It wasn't big. No grand hall. Just a medium-sized room with folding chairs, modest lighting, and a banner hung slightly crooked, Local Talent Showcase. There were maybe 40 people in the crowd when I peeked out. Couples, families, a couple of teens clearly dragged there by parents. One guy in a full Dead Kennedys hoodie who looked extremely out of place. I retreated backstage, hands twitching. Then I felt it. The smooth neck of the guitar case under my fingers. Steady, familiar. The performance. I took the stage at 2:29. Dan gave me a subtle thumbs up from the side. The MC mispronounced my last name. Twice. I adjusted the mic, sat on the stool, and looked down for a second. Then up, and saw him. Kyle. Back row, arms crossed, no smile, just watching. I didn't pause. I played. Things We Don't Return. Same chords as the night at the bar, but different now. Polished, sharpened, a little more sure of itself. Each verse told a piece of the story I hadn't spoken aloud. A guitar lent in good faith. A friend who forgot what trust costs. A silence that stretched longer than either of us meant. And finally, the sound of letting go. No big chorus, just a slow build and a final line. Some strings snap, some just go quiet. I didn't look at the crowd when I finished. Didn't need to. I looked at Kyle. He nodded once. That was enough. backstage. Later, I found Dan packing up cables. "You killed it, man," he said, clapping my back. "Seriously. Thanks. You okay?" I paused, then said, "I think I am." Kyle catches up. I found him outside by the food trucks. He was eating fries, hood up against the drizzle. "Didn't expect you," I said. "I owed you one," he replied, brushing salt from his fingers. "You owe me more than one." He gave a tight smile. "True." We stood side by side for a moment, watching people line up for gyros and mini donuts. "You always write about stuff that hurts?" he asked. "Not always. Just the stuff I don't know how to say out loud." He nodded, then handed me the last fry. I took it. One last visit. 2 weeks later, I stopped by Kyle's new place. Not to confront, not to dredge up anything, just to drop something off. I rang the bell. He opened the door, eyes tired, wearing a shirt that said, "Trust me, I'm still learning." "Hey," I said. "Hey." I handed him a soft case. "What's this?" He unzipped it slowly. Inside was a second guitar. Mine once, but gifted to me by my uncle in college. The one I'd always kept in the closet. Never played much. Still sounded clean. "I don't need two," I said. He stared at it, then at me, then said quietly, "Are you sure?" I shrugged. Figured it's time to lend something on purpose. He didn't speak, just wrapped one arm around me, awkward and quick, like the guy I used to know. Today, the guitar hangs on my wall now, the original one, the one he tried to sell. I play it more. Not daily, but when I need to feel grounded. Some people carry their scars like armor. Me, I strum mine, and when I do, I remember what it feels like to be hurt by someone close, but also what it feels like to forgive without needing an apology first. If this story moved you, subscribe for more real-life confessions and emotional journeys like this one.